up, audit fans? Dr. Amanda White here with our video in the Standards Explained series on ASA ISA705 modifications to the opinion. So remember, in our unqualified opinion, our unqualified situation is we're giving clients the big tick. All right. So what we're saying when we give the unmodified, unqualified opinion is that everything is true and fair, free from material misstatements following the accounting standards. Whereas what we're saying here in a modified opinion, something's wrong. It could be a disagreement with management, inability to get evidence, but we're signaling that there is an issue. So we're going to look at the different circumstances about when we modify and then the type of audit reports and how they are put together. Of course, as always, Australia is fully harmonised internationally, and ISA, ASA 705 are the same thing. There are some extra requirements due to our Corporations Act, but nothing seriously onerous. So let's start with the scope of the standard. It's our responsibility to issue an audit opinion, and when we conclude that the financial statements are not true and fair and appropriately stated, then we need to express a modified opinion. There are different types: qualified opinion, an adverse opinion, and a disclaimer of opinion. And how we decide what opinion it's going to be will depend on why we're actually modifying the report and the level of pervasiveness. So before I actually jump in the standard, I'm going to look at some of the explanatory material, and this comes up in the first part here, A1, in terms of the different types of modified opinions, because I think this table really helps explain the standard quite clearly. So we always start, so our number one starting point is going to be over here. Why are we having this misstatement? So financial reports misstated, that could be a note disclosure. So when we talk about financial reports being misstated, we're saying, well, this could be an incorrect dollar value, or it could be an incorrect, inappropriate, or insufficient note. I also look at the possibility that I couldn't get enough evidence. All right, so there's a note disclosure, or I couldn't meet the requirements of ASA, ISA 500. Step 2 is going to be over here, where I need to judge the level of pervasiveness about the situation that I'm looking at. Now, obviously, for it to be considered a modified opinion, we have to have a material issue, so material but not pervasive, or material and pervasive. So if it's material but not pervasive, we have a qualified opinion for both a disagreement with management and inability to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence. So these are the same. However, when it's material and pervasive, if I have a disagreement with management, it's an adverse opinion. If I can't get sufficient appropriate evidence, it's a disclaimer, because what I'm saying in this one is that I am actually giving no opinion, insufficient evidence to be able to give an opinion on the whole financial statements. Whereas here I'm saying I'm giving you an opinion, but my opinion is that the financial statements are crap. Now the key to this hinges on the words not pervasive and pervasive. So I always like to think of it in this respect. Pervasive to me always comes down to two particular animals. All right. So think about the financial statements here. We've got our numbers and our information. So imagine we have an octopus. Let me see if I can get enough legs. Is that 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 legs. There's my little octopus. He's happy. So if I plopped my octopus on top of my financial statements, all of his little tentacles are going to touch on different places, and I would call that pervasive. Now, pervasive also means so large that it overwhelms the financial statements. So imagine you've got a blue whale. All right, this is the world's largest whale. There he is in the ocean eating plankton. There's his little fin. So the blue whale is so large that one misstatement is so big that it overwhelms the entire set of financials. So pervasiveness is the octopus or it's the blue whale. Now students will tend to jump to pervasive really easy. If you've got 2 misstatements, that's not pervasive unless they're super, super large. All right, so the reason I looked at this table first is because this actually matches back into the auditing standard. So paragraph 7A is going to be material misstatements but not pervasive. 7B is going to be inability to obtain sufficient and appropriate evidence. 8 is going to be adverse opinion, and 9 and 10 are going to be the disclaimer. So that's all you really need to know about those. And then in the opinion, I'm going to look at what we actually need to say. So you'll notice here a definition for pervasive, which is what I just talked about. When we'd modify the opinion about the disagreement with management, so we're saying something is not free from material misstatement or insufficient audit evidence. So there's my two qualified opinions, 7A, 7B, and adverse. Then we have our two reasons for disclaimer of opinion. And then some instructions on what we should do if we found out that we couldn't get evidence after we've accepted the engagement. You shouldn't accept an engagement for a client where you don't think they're going to cooperate with you, but if you do, there are some specific examples. I've not actually seen this happen in my practical experience. So now we need to talk about what goes into the audit report, into the audit opinion. So I actually say it's a qualified opinion, an adverse opinion, a disclaimer of opinion. In the qualified opinion, I say everything is fine except for the matters at which we're going to discuss. All right, so you actually list out the reasons why you're disagreeing with management. In the adverse opinion, you actually say that the financial report does not prepare fairly or has not been prepared in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. So you're very clear in the adverse. In the disclaimer, I actually need to say I'm not giving an opinion because I am not able to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence to actually give one on the whole. In the basis for opinion section, I have to include a description of the matter that gives rise to the modification. So I would need to talk about what account is related, the reason for why we have the disagreement or the scope limitation, and potentially any dollar value impact that we could calculate because of this uncorrected misstatement within the financials. Our last point is our communication with those charged with governance. So when I expect to modify the audit opinion, I should communicate with those charged with governance. I'm going to tell them early on, before we sign the audit opinion, you're going to warn the client that they're going to receive a modified opinion, and the client may decide to make some changes or adjustments before we get to that final signing date. We know that when you receive a modified opinion, there's a definite negative stock price reaction, so management might think very carefully before they commit to a modified opinion. So that's it for ASA 705 and modifications. Stay tuned for ASA ISA 706. And if you're wondering what an opinion is, make sure you go back to ASA 700 about opinions in general. Thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments. Click the like button. And if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing and clicking the notification bell to get all the updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.